Hi everyone, this is Mark with Ease Investing. Today, we're going to go over the very basics of stock options. Stock options, when you're first learning them, may be confusing or intimidating, but they're very easy to understand. So we're going to go over the basics of stock options. Keep in mind, there are only 4 stock options that exist. So here in Robinhood, if you want to get to the stock options, you find the stock that you want to get into the stock options. In this example, we're going to do SoFi. And to get into the stock options, you're going to click Trade, Trade Options, and this is going to pull up the stock options. At the top, you select a date where you want to be doing the stock options. In this example, I'll do July 25th. You can see here that where it says buy, sell, call, and put, these are the stock options. Like I said, there are only 4 of them. Let's get into the first 2, and after the first 2, you will have understood the basics of half of the stock options. So we're going to select buy and call. So this is number 1. With buying a call, you are betting that the stock price is going to increase by a certain date. If the stock price increases by that date, you make money. That is buying a call. You are betting that the stock price is going to increase by a certain date. Next, number 2, we're going to do buy a put. When you buy a put, you are betting that the stock price is going to decrease by a certain date. If it decreases, you make money. So when you buy a put, you are betting that the stock price is going to decrease by a certain date. Those are the first 2 stock options. If you understand those 2, you understand the very basics of half of the stock options. Let's get into the other 2. Selling a call. When you sell a call, you have to already own 100 shares of the stock. In this example, the share price is $20.10. So let's say you already own 100 shares of the stock and you want to sell a $21 call. What you are doing when you are selling a call is you're putting a cap on the stock saying you don't think that it's going to get above the $21. For making that bet, you get paid money. So when you sell a call, you are putting a cap or you're placing a bet saying that the stock price won't get above the $21 and you get paid to make that agreement. That is selling a call. And then number 4, selling a put. When you sell a put, you are agreeing to buy 100 shares of the stock if the stock price gets down to the price where you have sold the put. So in this example, the share price is $20.08. If I were to sell a $19 put, what I am doing is I am betting that the share price will not get to $19. And if it does get to $19, I will buy the stock for $19 a share and I will buy 100 shares of the stock. If it stays above the $19, then I just keep the money. That is selling a put, is you are betting that the stock price will not get down to your put price. And if you're correct, you make money. If you're incorrect, you are on the hook to buy 100 shares of the stock price at your selected put price. Those are the only 4 options that exist. Now, if I were beginning to learn stock options, I would just focus on one of these. And the one that I would focus on is selling a put. And I would have 2 requirements. The first requirement would be selling a put on a stock that you already want to own and selecting the put price where you are agreeing to buy 100 shares of the stock at a price you are more than comfortable owning that stock. So for example, on this stock, it's trading at $20. If I know I already want to own the stock and I'm more than comfortable owning the stock for $19 a share, And if I were beginning to learn stock options, this is the first thing I would do, is I would sell a put on the stock for $19. The reason why is because if that went against me and the stock dropped down, worst case scenario is you'd be buying 100 shares of the stock for $19. So it's already doing something that you want to do. And best case scenario is if the share price stayed above the $19, you would just collect the money that you got paid for placing that bet and being right. Hope this video helps you understand the very basics of the 4 stock options that exist and what I would do if I were beginning to get into stock options is I would understand one at a time. And the first one I would try to understand would be selling a put.